Welcome to episode 461, Henry Ford, from bankrupt to billionaire and a capitalist with a conscience. This is an outline of episode 461. There are 4 reasons we study Henry Ford. First, he created a whole industry for the middle class, automobiles. Second, his influence still felt today. Ford Motor Company, Ford Foundation, and the 40-hour work week. Third, at his peak, he was the richest man in the world with a net worth that is more than twice that of Bill Gates. Fourth, we still feel Fordism today, and I will explain that later. Let us meet Henry Ford.
Finally, after 19 years of production, Henry Ford had actually built almost 15.5 million Model Ts. And they were by far the most popular and most plentiful vehicle on the road. And here you can see the assembly of the 15 millionth, which is a 4-door convertible model. And as you can see, they've added some paint colors other than just black, and that actually is Henry Ford there driving off the assembly line and driving in that 15 millionth Model T Ford. This particular one hadn't gone through final assembly quality control. You can see how Henry had to give a little nudge there to get it shut properly.
Henry Ford was born in 1863 in Greenfield, Michigan. Here's a map of Greenfield, Michigan. It's about 160 miles from Detroit. His father, William Ford, was a wealthy farmer and also an immigrant from Ireland. At an early age, he showed an interest in mechanical things and a dislike for farm work. When he was 13 years old, his mother, Mary Ford, died, and that was devastating to him because Henry Ford now had to fight his father, William Ford, who wanted his son to continue the family line and farming. After more than 10 years of tinkering, he became the chief engineer at Edison Electric Company in Detroit. He was 30 years old, and the 30-year-old Ford became an inventor.
If he could build a reliable horseless carriage, Ford believed, he could change people's lives.
What he invented was a quadricycle, which is made out of 2 bicycles and a motor engine.
When on June 4th, 1896, Ford drove his horseless carriage through the streets of Detroit for the first time. As the rickety vehicle bounced down Grand River Avenue, a friend cycled ahead to warn pedestrians out of the way. The quadricycle, as Ford dubbed it, had 28-inch bicycle wheels, a top speed of 20 miles per hour, and no brakes. It couldn't go in reverse and was prone to overheating. Yet wherever he went, the quadricycle drew crowds of curious bystanders. Soon he attracted the attention of more than a dozen of Detroit's most prominent leaders, including the mayor himself, all eager to invest in Ford and his machine.
In 1903, at the age of 40, with about $30,000, he started Ford Motor Company. One of Henry Ford's most famous inventions was the assembly line, and I think he got the original idea from a slaughterhouse.
Parts to the exact point on the line, engineers put in a network of clanking conveyors.
They were running for the length of the building, like carrying the parts. Instead of you carrying it by hands, why the conveyors would carry it on the line.
The workers became an integrated part of the great machine.
After amassing a fortune that is more than twice that of Bill Gates, he became the richest man on earth. But Henry Ford also became very paranoid and a weird man.
One of the nation's richest men, he despised the wealthy and feared a vast conspiracy threatened to bring him down. A hero to many ordinary Americans, he battled his workers and bullied those who looked up to him, including his only son.
company grew, Henry became increasingly more eccentric. He began to think of his own body as an automobile. He reasoned that if his cars were designed to run off the best fuel, the same should be true for himself. He adopted a nearly vegetarian diet, eating veggies from his garden and roadside greens. Roadside greens are weeds.
What is Fordism, or how Henry Ford changed the world? First, mass production. He produced 50 million Model T cars. Second, low prices, less than $300 per car. Third, high wages, from $2.50 a day to $5 a day. Fourth, better worker condition. He was the first in the world to instigate the 40-hour week.
And the management set the speed it ran at, without discussion or negotiation, for unions were forbidden. But Ford had an answer. The company was making record profits. The time taken to build each car had dropped to 1.5 hours, so he could afford to raise pay. When he announced he was doubling wages to the unheard-of level of $5 a day, the factory was besieged by applicants. Red Cole was 18 when he started at Ford. In 1920, Detroit was a boom town. Its population had grown fourfold since 1900. Other car makers adopted the Ford method. His recipe, mass production, low costs, high wages, was creating not only cheap cars, but well-paid workers. It was a time when a wide gulf separated those who built cars from those who bought them. But the days when cars were just luxuries for the rich were drawing to a close. America now set the pace in engineering and production. European managers and workers knew that what was happening in American factories pointed the way of the future.
What have I learned today? Two things. First, Henry Ford had more bankruptcies, failures than any of his competitors in the car industry, yet he was the most successful of them all. Second, Henry Ford contributed to consumers and to his workers more than anyone else in history. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe and leave your questions and comments below. My next video will be Henry Ford, 10 Lessons. Wishing everyone peace and prosperity.